Is this it?
So yeah, so I think our
I
full
think
group
this
is
it,
here.
Yeah,
Yep.
we
so
are a small committee.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
relative to the others.
Indeed.
Okay.
Just gotta pull up the agenda here.
And our agenda is short, but I think it's deceptive.
All right.
And then just to share, Stephen, I know you and I took notes at our in-person meeting. I'll be taking notes on my end, just so
Okay,
you know, you don't have to feel pressured to do it. But
thank you. Do you want to record? Oh, you are recording
Yep.
as well. So I saw that. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and we have to record and post all Zoom meetings, so
Great,
it'll
that's
be
great.
up on the website by
That's
probably
wonderful.
by tomorrow.
Okay,
So
thank
if
you.
I recall, Arienne is the subcommittee chair, but I don't know how we want to navigate the agenda. If Arienne wants to sort of lead us through this, or if Cindy's going to be our shepherd, or how do we want to do this? Oh, it looks like we lost Arienne.
Maybe I am a shepherd after all, right after I shook my head no.
There she is. All right.
Oh, that was weird. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I thought we would start with the bylaws. I know we talked a little bit about that at our last kind of subcommittee meeting. And thank you, Cyndi, for reaching out to the other states to acquire theirs. I don't know if anybody has had the opportunity to look through these. I think I definitely want to look.
Oh no.
Is that her reception or
I
mine?
think
I have
so.
terrible reception.
I'm not sure, but I wasn't hearing her either.
Can
Are you there?
Are you hearing me now? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you're frozen, but we can hear you at least.
Oh no. Oh gosh. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm not in my office. I'm in somebody else's office. So
Are you
Arienne,
in
maybe?
Are you in 165 Capitol, Arienne?
no, I'm not right now. No.
I wonder if turning video off.
I can hear you guys fine. Maybe. Yeah, good idea. I can hear you guys fine. I don't know if you guys want to go ahead. I was just saying that I would probably need some assistance to understand better what the ideas around our bylaws and how they may compare to the ones that we've seen so far.
We can definitely hear you, Arienne. Thank you. I skimmed a little bit. I think, my concern in looking through some of this is having the right kind of legal guidance. And I don't know, Stephen, if that's where you have strong feelings about this, since there are, I think, some clear structures that are part of this, the bylaws.
Yeah, I think one thing that's critical, bylaws are hardly ever referred to unless there is an issue. So I think it's important to have some level of structure for those moments where there may be a question about how it is that we relate to each other, what our ultimate goals. So that's the lowest common denominator of a bylaws system. There are other structures that I think are interesting. Some of them are referenced, which the bylaws as a teaching tool, right? What are we together for? What are we wanting to accomplish? And how are we organizing ourselves? And as a tool of democracy, I think it'd be really interesting to really see any draft of the bylaws through that lens, right? Because one thing that we want to model is, how do we talk to each other? How do we structure those conversations in a way that benefits collaboration and learning and ultimately our democracy? So I think bylaws as a tool to teach, I think, would be really useful. If we just wanted to organize ourselves well and put on a good event, I don't think we would need bylaws, to be honest with you. But I think it'd be fun to use the bylaws to teach in that way and then to model moving forward. Because, you know, I think if done well, this 250 conversation could go into the future, right? Because we're actually reimagining and in some ways reaffirming our social contract.
I really appreciate that, Stephen. Absolutely. I've been thinking a lot about this sort of nature of the social contract and sort of presenting it in more public discourse than I think we've had. So I love the idea of modeling this. In reviewing the Rhode Island Commission's bylaws, I think they have some important structure that might be a platform to start from. But then modifying it in a way that makes sense to your point.
Yeah, and I found the Vermont bylaws to be the most kind of the simplest, most straightforward, easiest to kind of understand if we're trying to use more plain language. Maybe we can kind of combine the two.
Yep.
In a sense.
That's great. And you know, we can take a stab at starting a draft that kind of takes some of those best elements if you'd like. And I'll keep in mind some of that thinking around what it is that we're teaching by modeling our not only our focus on the 250, but also the moving forward. If you'd like, we can do that. I'll work with my staff to put something together. There's another, I wanted to offer something, you know, when I, a couple of years ago during the pandemic, we were having kind of vibrant conversations around just what you said, Jason, that social contract and how it is that, you know, emergency brings out the best of us as well. And how it is that we activate around each other as communities, why we're doing this to begin with, all those questions come back up, and how every generation in some ways reaffirms that commitment. And some of those conversations I actually had with a gentleman that is the chief executive officer of the Urban Assembly out of New York. So the Urban Assembly also does work here in Connecticut. And what they do is that they're educators first and foremost, but they focus on social and emotional skills building, but really relational tools. And relational tools in the service of democracy. That's how he drives his ship. And I'll tell you, one of the most dynamic speakers and thought leaders that I have met. And I'm going to put the Urban Assembly's link in the chat, if you will. Something for you to consider, because David has, you know, he's in and out of Connecticut, and he has graciously offered to address us as a larger 250 group to kind of talk out loud, and perhaps maybe even in a moderated panel format, to talk about the importance of this work in the framing that that we've heard so many of our leaders talk about, and so many of the people talk about, you know, and that notion of reaffirming the social contract in every community, and that every community see themselves, is something that's important to David. David, in his day's job is what I describe, but his night job or his after school work happens to be that he is a reserve officer in the US military. And it was really interesting to hear him describe, there was a young person at a conference that we attended who asked, how do you align your work as an officer in the military with your work in social and emotional skills building in a educational setting? And his description alone was an argument for democracy. His description alone was a love letter to our experiment, our ever improving experiment that is the United States of America, our federated constitutional republic. And the way in which all of our little democracies kind of express themselves, including and especially Connecticut, for our point of view. So I think it'd be really neat to have him come and not only address us, but also, you know, maybe have a little panel discussion. I'd be more than happy to offer him a little bit of an honorarium. I know that he'll do it for a whisper and a song, just because he's a friend of the commission. But I think it'd just be really cool to have him at one of our future meetings, maybe our fall meeting.
I love that. We need to be in conversation with that much more. I really appreciate that.
So have a look. I won't say anything more about it to him or to us until I hear from the two of you. And then what we can do is we can perhaps present the notion. I did mention it to Denise, and she thought it was a great idea, but I told her I wanted to talk to you about it before we took it any further, but she liked it as an idea.
I think it's a great idea, and I think October would be great. And hopefully if we reach out now, we can make it happen.
Yeah.
That's great. Pardon me, I'm eating soup, so that's why I'm off camera.
Okay.
I don't mean to be rude.
Don't worry, I had a cookie for lunch.
Oh,
at
great.
11:55, so that's where we are.
What's the date of our October meeting, Cyndi?
Let me get that for you.
Great.
One of the things that I just want to note with respect to the bylaws, and it struck me when I looked at the Rhode Island, where did it go? Too many tabs open here. We've recently put together an MOU between Connecticut Humanities and the state, DECD, which is the sort of administrative part of the commission vis-a-vis the governor's executive order. But just to have some clarification around that, I don't want to lose sight of that in the bylaws. If there's any, we're sort of careful to lay things out in terms of funding flow and administrative responsibilities.
Sure.
And maybe that might need to play into how we think about the bylaws.
Yep.
I don't want to overplay that, but just want to be cognizant of that.
Thank you for that prompt.
Yeah.
I think if we, I think bylaws, when written well, never kind of backtrack into reimagining kind of relationships and partnerships. They just strengthen them. And especially when it comes to how we administer or fund a resource. So we'll think very carefully about that. We'll kind of wrap it in. We'll work together on that. Just
Great.
to make sure we're not missing anything.
I'm happy to share a draft with this group, but it is currently under review by DECD, so they have not yet approved it. So it's 100% in draft form at this point.
Okay, we'll keep it
Okay.
confidential.
Thank you. So, aside from the bylaws, am I right that the advisory council, establishing the advisory council or assisting with the establishment of the advisory council is also under our committee here?
Yes, I believe so. And I will throw in the chat a different link to, so we have been in conversation with Denise about kind of the structure of the commission as a whole. And so we have the commission, we have the subcommittees, which are really the working group. And then on the next level, we have what is outlined as the advisory council in the executive order is really a group of scholars and other people that can inform the work of the commission. So a little different from what we're initially referring to as the advisory council, which would be more helpful with visibility and fundraising. That group we have reframed as part of Connecticut Humanities, given that all of the fundraising will go through Connecticut Humanities and come to us. And we are calling that group the 250th Leadership Committee, which is an ad hoc committee of the CTH Board of Directors.
Got it.
Does that all make
Okay.
sense?
Mhm.
So scholars to advise the commission, not necessarily scholars to advise people out in the various towns doing the work on the ground.
I can see it doing a little bit of both, honestly. I think people are
Okay.
asking for scholars that they can turn to. So if we have scholars that we are working for in our capacity on the commission, I think it would make perfect sense to also share those names with the general public.
Okay.
Cyndi, could you also copy into the chat here the committee language that was just approved by our board, just so that Stephen and Arienne are aware of that specific language and role, since we do spell it out there. And I don't know if you have the language also, I don't know if it's on our website for the 250th, that distinguishes it from the advisory, or if that's just drawn from the executive order.
Right now, I would say it's just drawn from the executive order. But let me share. Sorry, I have files now in like 12 different places, so it takes me a second to get the right links. I will share the interest form that we have on the website, because that is where we outline the difference between advisory councils, subcommittees, etc., in the clearest way. So
Okay.
that is the interest survey. And then I'll grab that language about the leadership committee in just a moment. We've gotten about 6 responses so far to that, to the interest survey.
How many did you say?
6. So not a huge amount, but I'm also not sure where exactly it is being.
Yeah,
shared
I know
on
I
the website.
shared it with the teacher who won Red, White, and Blue Schools in Bristol, Bristol or Berlin, I think. Oh, I'm forgetting. Chippens Hill Middle School. And I think Steve Armstrong already reached out to her to join his education committee, or was about to.
I think that is Bristol. And then the very long description of the leadership committee is in the chat as well.
And we are going to be starting a newsletter. I don't know if it'll be monthly or bi-monthly, but a newsletter out to like town leaders. And I know the secretary planned to have in her first one information about the 250th and a link to this. So hopefully that will help spread the word a bit.
That's wonderful. Arienne, does the Secretary of the State's office by any chance have a list of July 4th celebrations that are happening?
I just compiled a specific list to around where kind of some targeted towns that we are working in. But that's, so I do have those, but that's pretty much the extent of it. We haven't compiled a full list. No.
If you wouldn't mind sharing that with me,
Sure.
working on getting some outreach done around those celebrations this year, and putting together the list is taking longer than I was hoping. I reached out to some of our congressional representatives, hoping that they would already have lists, and they don't either. So
Okay. We'll be in Willimantic on the 4th, FYI, if anyone wants to march with us. We have t-shirts.
All right.
We're recruiting. Boombox parade.
Denise will be there as well.
Yeah, I understand it's a big, a lot of the constitutionals go.
Awesome.
Great. Okay, so being that it sounds like the advisory council will be a bit more targeted in who you're looking for now. Is it still at the same size that you were originally imagining? Is it going to maybe a bit smaller now?
I think the advisory council, the way Denise is thinking of it is that is where she kind of wants to get people involved who don't have the time to really work on a subcommittee, but still want to be involved. So I think it could still be a fairly sizable group.
Okay.
And that's in contrast to the leadership committee on the board, which will be about a dozen or so people, sort of
Right.
specifically pulled out and targeted.
Correct.
Okay.
And my imagination is that this advisory council, we might get them together once, maybe twice in a year, as just like a goodwill effort to kind of connect them with one another and inform them of what the commission is doing. But I don't think that beyond that and beyond being available to answer questions, I don't think they will be hugely involved in specific projects or maybe a specific project, but not like whole big picture working kind of across the commission.
Cyndi, can you just repeat? So you said that they might get together once or twice a year to, what was that? To learn about what the commission is doing, or?
Yeah, update them. And ideally, if we have some kind of question or something that we need feedback on, I can see them being a good group for that. And I will try to find, one of the states does a really good job of, and it might be Pennsylvania. If you take a look at their state commission website, they have partner organizations and scholars highlighted on their website as like commission partners. And I can almost envision this serving kind of that role, because I think the Keeler Taverns, the DAR, the SAR, this can be where they kind of fit in.
As we're talking about this, I'm reminded of the conversation we had with Richard Josie and sort of the work we're all doing with DEI. And I just wonder if there's an opportunity in the bylaws to include sort of the value statements that we talked about. And I think about, we as a commission have sort of had a conversation, and I think are all in agreement and alignment of the direction we're moving in. But as we, as Stephen was talking about earlier, this is about sort of relationships and, how do we sort of take the social contract and the discussion around it, but also sort of be really clear about the values that we have around our relationships, around our democracy, and how we want to carry that forward with anybody who is connected with this commission. And the advisors, while they may be more tangentially connected, I think also, bear a responsibility to sort of take forward into the public domain the values that we are espousing through the commission and through our organizations.
I think that is a great point. So I've sent out a couple of drafts of the value statement, and Andy did a great job. I haven't shared it out yet because I haven't had a chance to really read it, but he turned it into a really well-written paragraph, and I'm hoping to review that and make sure that it's included in the agenda for the July meeting, because it really accurately reflects that IDEA workshop and also the conversation that we had at the last meeting. I'm hoping to take that and the other work that we've done and adapt a document that Vermont created for, what is it called? It is their event review criteria, because that was something else that we talked about at the last meeting of all of the subcommittee chairs. And they take kind of their values, their strategic plan, and their themes as outlined in their executive order. Our executive order doesn't have that level of clarity, but they use that to create criteria along with holding organizations responsible to kind of general ADA access type stuff, as a way to promote certain events around Vermont, which I think is something that we've been talking about. So I'm hoping to turn this document over to the commission to discuss at that July meeting.
Great.
Yeah, that sounds great.
But I think once we have that, we can definitely work it into the bylaws in a more concrete way.
Yeah. And is there kind of a structure in terms of establishing the advisory council, just putting forth that effort to be sure that we are being inclusive in who's on the council, and making sure that we're actively reaching out to certain communities that might not otherwise, be represented or know about this? Or is that something that this subcommittee should be establishing?
I think, no, I know we haven't yet done as much as we want to do. So I think having some kind of structure in place via this commission and in partnership with the IDEA subcommittee, is going to be important.
Okay.
And certainly our work at Connecticut Humanities, as we continue to sort of, work across Connecticut and build these relationships, we'll be looking to broaden the representation and the voices. I think it was really clear in the conversations we had with Richard Josie that the people who were participating were largely older and white. So we have work to do. We have other places we need to be present and in building those relationships. So making sure that, that effort wasn't a one-off, that the work needs to continue.
Yep. Okay. Is there a time frame for either the bylaws or the advisory council establishment? Kind of like by end of year or by the October meeting? Should we have like a draft of the bylaws kind of set?
I think the timeline for the bylaws, October makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I think
Is that doable on Stephen's side?
yeah.
I think most importantly.
Are those tears of
Exactly.
sorrow or joy?
Tears of joy. Tears of joy.
As someone who accidentally volunteers for too much, I feel your pain.
Okay, perfect. So we'll try for October. So Stephen, I'll assume that you'll reach out if you need assistance in some way. Great.
Great.
Okay. And then advisory council, I know it's not fully on us. I think last we talked, the other committees would also be reaching out and making suggestions for members as well, right? Yep. Okay. Okay. Is there anything else that I'm missing right now for our subcommittee? What we should be doing?
This is Sheldon. Not really related to our specific work, but wondering if it makes sense while we're together to maybe put down a couple of meetings on the calendar for moving forward. And if not yet, that's fine too, but I did just want to bring it up.
With respect to the bylaws, I don't know if Stephen wants to float a couple of dates when might be reasonable. If October's pushing it, or if October's the deadline, how can we sort of backplay that to when we might need to meet?
That's smart. Thank you. And I'm thinking if we could regroup, I'm looking at this carefully here. If we could regroup the week of the 17th, that would be helpful, of July. Just so that we can make sure that I have everything that I need in front of me. Between now and then, we'll just do some kind of bringing together, hopefully if we have a draft of that contract, Cyndi, that'll help at least keep that front and center in mind. And maybe on that same day, we can also regroup on any particulars regarding having David from the Urban Assembly come and speak, if that's what we want. So I think if there's an email that's going to memorialize today after this meeting, I'd love to hear from I'd love to hear from you here if you think it's something we should pursue, and if so, maybe we can just offer it up to. I'll make sure that David's available, and then we can offer it up to the chairs as well.
It sounds like Denise was supportive, Stephen, right?
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's great. Okay.
And well, thank you for that, Jason. And so I'm thinking maybe if we can come together and meet the afternoon of Monday the 17th, is that something that might work for folks?
Yep, that works for me.
Okay,
I'm
great.
looking now. Yep,
great.
that works for us too.
Oh, awesome. So maybe let's see. So maybe if I don't know if any of you want to send the calendar invite, but maybe 2 p.m. on Monday the 17th on this same channel.
That sounds good. And I think I mentioned previously that the secretary and I are both at a conference that week of our next full meeting. So we
Got it.
will miss that on the 12th. So this will be a good way to regroup for me.
That's great. That's
So
great.
this
I'll be away as well that week. I wonder if we're at the same thing. But it'll be, and it's going to be early where I'll be compared to the time. I may be able to log in. It just depends really on the moment. And I know that there are several presentations happening that morning that I'm part of. So I hope to be there at the meeting on the 12th.
Great.
So Jason, you'll be on tap, I think, to report back for.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
subcommittee.
No pressure, Jason.
Yeah.
No
sorry,
pressure.
Jason.
Okay. Sheldon has good minutes. I'll report from there.
That's great.
Great.
Awesome. And then if we wanna have a second date, July 17 being the next one. I hate to impose on your August, but we do wanna, or maybe your late August, maybe. And maybe we can think of it that way. But let's see.
I think we're okay with August. We're around.
Okay.
Unless Jason, you have some great plans that I'm not aware of.
Mhm.
I'll work around this.
How about Monday, August 21st in the afternoon?
That sounds
That
great.
yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, great. Great. So if we can make that our second time, same place, that'll be great. And if anybody wants to meet in person, we can do that too. It's kind of charming to meet in person these days, but might be something that if we're able to do, we can do. But I'm okay with the virtual meetings as well.
Virtual is great, but I would actually love in person. Yeah, it's
Great. So we'll see if the
I
logistics.
welcome that.
Yeah, we'll see if the logistics lend themselves to that, either both or either of those meetings. And because it'll just be fun to, and I can host here at the commission. I know we're all kind of circling around these areas and we have little conference rooms that are really accessible. So
Great.
Yep,
And,
exactly.
Just in looking, do we want to just say September 18th, which is also a Monday, so that we just get all three on the calendar?
that's
leading up to
wonderful.
that
That works for
October?
me. Works for me. Same time if it does for everybody else. That's smart. Thank you, Cyndi.
All righty, thank you.
Awesome.
Yep, should be good.
Fabulous.
Great.
Nice.
All right, good.
Great
So
to
I
see
look
all of
forward
you.
to, yeah, great to see you.
All right, till
everybody.
July.
All right, see you soon.
Yep.
Ciao.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Yep.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.